Hello everyone, I'm Shri, and continuing from the last video, we are still discussing the pragmatic philosophy. Let's start. The first topic is that we're discussing today is good enough software. Now, to understand what I'm going to say, let's draw some comparisons, okay? So, in some ways, programming is like painting. You start with a blank canvas and certain materials, right? And you use a combination of science, art, and craft to determine what to do with them. You sketch out an overall shape, paint the underlying environment, and fill in the details. And you constantly step back with a critical eye to see what you have done. And every now and then you'll throw a canvas away and start again, right? But artists tell you that all the hard work is ruined if you don't know when to stop. If you add layer upon layer and details over detail, the painting gets lost in the paint. And the same applies to your program as well. You need to discipline yourself to write software that's good enough. And by good enough, I mean good enough for your users and for your own peace of mind. And you find that you're more productive and your users are more happier too. And you may as well find that your programs are actually better for their shorter incubation, because their requirements might change over a certain period of time, like for example a year. And if you finish the program now and give the user something to play with, then you might as well get the feedback and then prepare something that they need in that year time. So, and also by good enough, again, that does not imply sloppy or poorly written code. All systems must meet their users' requirements to be successful and meet basic performance and functions and security standards. However, it doesn't need to be perfect, is what we're getting at. You need to involve your users when we are discussing the quality of the program that you're writing as well. Because when we involve users, it's usually to ask for the requirements, right? And that's amazing. But another addition that you could make is that you can ask your users to what extent that you should develop your software that they would be happy at, right? And involve your users in that aspect. Ask them, is this enough for you? Like, is this enough? Because after it meets their basic requirements, of course, it does not need to be perfect. You do not need to go out of your way and spend even more time and create more functions that the users didn't even ask for in the first place, and they would rather have it sooner than later, right? So, to be more professional, make quality a requirements issue. And you might be surprised because many users would rather use software with some rough edges today than wait a year for the more refined version. So great software today is more preferable than perfect software tomorrow. So again, if you give your users something to play with early, their feedback will often lead you to a better solution. So don't spoil a perfectly good program with over refinement. So move on and let your code stand in its own right for a while. It may not be perfect, but again, nothing ever is perfect, right? So know when to stop when you're writing your code. Okay, so in the pragmatic philosophy that we're discussing, we are now entering into the final section of it, and I think these two topics are more important than the others. And these two topics are your knowledge portfolio and communication. Okay. in this industry especially, right? Well, your knowledge and experience are your more important assets, day-to-day professional assets. Unfortunately, they are also expiring assets, because this market is ever changing from day to day. The technology is evolving at a rapid pace, and you need to keep up with it. So your ability to learn new things is the most strategic asset to your career. You need to learn, you need to invest in your knowledge portfolio. That's where we're getting at. Managing your knowledge portfolio might be the most important thing that you have to do for your career. Okay, so how do you build your knowledge portfolio? Here are some basic guidelines. Okay, first of all, you need to invest regularly. You must invest in your knowledge portfolio regular, even if it's just a small amount. And the habit is as important as the sum. So plan to use a consistent time and place away from interruptions, and again, the habit is more important. Even if you're improving only a little bit by each time, it's really important to invest in it regularly. Two, to diversify. The more different things you know, the more valuable you are. Of course, you don't need to know every single aspect of every single thing you learn, right? You only need to know the ins and out of the particular technology you're using right now that you're working with currently. However, don't stop there, right? Again, the face of computing changes rapidly. Technology today that's relevant might not be tomorrow. So, and the more technologies that you're comfortable with, the better you are to adjust to change. And you might not use it, like you might not use the exact technology that you're learning today. However, it will definitely improve you. You will definitely improve in the aspect that you'll be able to adjust to the change. And also, when you're learning the new things, do not forget to revise the things that you already know, that you've already learned, so that you don't forget all the other skills that you need. And three, manage risks. So technology now exists along a spectrum from risky, potentially high reward, to low risk, low reward standards. And it's not good to invest all of your money in high risk stocks that might collapse suddenly, nor should you invest all of it in the low risk, low reward stocks, right? That's how you manage your financial portfolios. The same thing applies to your knowledge portfolios too. Do not put all your technical eggs in one basket. 4, buy low, sell high. Again, it's drawing comparisons from the knowledge, how you would manage a financial portfolio. But so learning a new emerging technology before it becomes popular can be just as hard as finding an undervalued stock, but the payoff can be just as rewarding. For example, Java, right? It's an example of a high reward and high risk technology, back in the day, of course, right? But if you have learned it when it was first introduced and when it was unknown, again, it might have been risky at the time, but it paid off. It paid off handsomely later, and so for the early adapters in the industry. So again, buy low and sell high and manage your risks. And 5, the main important thing: review and rebalance. As I've mentioned before, this is a very, very dynamic industry that hot technology started investigating now might not be as relevant tomorrow. So review what you need to do, right? brush up on the database technology that you haven't used in a while, right? Or perhaps you could be better positioned for that new job opening that you tried later in that other language. So review what is important to you, review what's happening around you and what you think would be beneficial to you. Okay. And again, it's important to do that regularly. So, and these are the basic guidelines, right? And you could make your own goals and make sure that you reach those goals that you make. And to give you a few examples, right? These are some of the goals that you could keep. Learn at least one new language every year, right? Different languages solve the same problems in different ways, and learning new languages helps broaden your thinking and avoid getting stuck in a rut. It broadens your mind, and learning many languages is also easy because of technology these days. You could watch videos like these, right? So definitely try to keep up with other languages. Again, you might not use that language particularly, but it does help you broaden the way that you think to solve a particular problem, which you could use on what you're working on currently. And after that, another goal might be read a technical book each month. If you don't know where to start, browse through the bestsellers section for technical books on interesting topics related to your current project. And once you're in the habit, once you start reading a book every month, and after you've mastered the technologies you're currently using, you can start expanding to and branch out to topics that doesn't relate to your current project. And adding on to the technical books, it's also very important to read non-technical books too, because in this industry, working with computers is not knowing how to work with computers is the basic of the basic things, and learning how to communicate with people is also another very important aspect to be in this industry. It is important to remember that computers are used by people, and you interact with people every single day. You work with people, you are employed by people, and you communicate with people. So do not forget the human side of this equation, and that requires an entirely different skill set from technical books, right? And these are soft skills. So make sure to read books based on these skills too. You need to master these skills in order to stay on top in your everyday, day-to-day professional career life. And some other goals might be taking classes. You might not be in uni now, but you can still take online college classes and it's definitely very helpful to learn the new technologies that are in. So yeah, take classes, participate in local user groups or meetups, experiment with different environments. That is, if you only worked in Windows, try to branch out and spend some time with Linux. And the most important of all of them, again, is staying current. So read news and post online on technology different from that of your current project. It's a great way to find out what experiences other people are having with it and what new ones that you could invest in. So definitely talk to people, meet up with people that are not only in your company, so that you know again what's going around you. Stay current, okay? So it doesn't matter whether you use any of these technologies on a project or even whether you put them on your resume. However, the process of learning itself will expand your thinking and open you to new possibilities and new ways of doing things. So try to apply the lessons you've learned in these aspects in your free time that you're spending, that you're investing in yourself, to your current project. And also, think critically. This, when you're investing in your knowledge portfolio, it's definitely possible to lose sight of what you're doing and just learn whatever is in front of you. Doesn't matter, like, do not do that though. Do not waste your time on something that doesn't matter to you, and prioritize also. So prioritize, for example, if you want to learn something new, right? Prioritize in the aspects of learn something new about the things that you're going to use currently, and then after you've mastered that, you can branch out to other things. So learn to think critically, and do not listen to every single thing that other people suggest as well. It's a great thing to take in other people's suggestions, however, don't blindly follow it. So, and also when you're reading new books, like we've mentioned before, when you're reading new technical and non-technical books, critically analyze what you read and hear. Do not just follow what everyone says. Doesn't matter if that's the bestseller. Just ask yourself, right? Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why at least 5 times. Ask a question, get an answer, right? And dig deeper, asking why. And repeat the process until, like, it may sound cynical. However, it is a helpful path to analyze. Like, ask why. Who does this benefit? What's the context? Where would this work? And why is there a problem? Like, things like that. Make sure you critically think and do what you want to do, and invest in the things that are related to you, that are relevant as well. Do not just invest in irrelevant things that you're not going to use anytime soon. So yeah, that's about improving your knowledge portfolio. Moving on to communication. Communication, in my aspect, is a really, really, really important characteristic of a pragmatic programmer. Because, having the best idea, the finest code, or the most pragmatic thinking is ultimately sterile unless you can communicate with other people. As developers, we have to communicate on so many levels. We spend hours in meetings listening and talking, and if that talking is not communicating, if it's not effective, then it's just like a waste of time, right? And if you're not that comfortable, or if you're not that good at communicating, well, think of it this way: like, treat English as just another programming language. Write natural language as you would write code, and talk to people. And definitely try to read some of the non-technical books that are there on the market, so it would help you a lot. However, these are some of the guidelines or some of the ideas that could be useful for you when it comes to communicating. First of all, know your audience. You're communicating only if you're conveying what you mean to convey, and just talking isn't enough. And to do that, you need to understand the needs and interests of your audience. For example, when you sit in a meeting, right, there's always, you probably know that one person that goes on a long monologue on the merits of some technology. That is not communicating, it's just talking. If it's boring and it's not getting any point across, it is not communicating. Simple as that. And a trick to communicating is to gather feedback, right? Don't just wait for questions, ask for them, and keep an eye out for their body language and facial expressions. And after you know your audience, you need to know what you want to say. It's not just jargon that you just say out of nowhere. And when you're writing documentations, it's not just introduction and you just start typing whatever comes to your head next. You need to plan what you want to say and write an outline. And then ask yourself, right, does this communicate what I want to express to my audience in a way that works for them? And if it doesn't, refine it until it does. This approach works more than just for documents, even especially when you're faced with an important meeting or a chat with a client. These strategies work for those aspects too, right? Also, make sure that when you're communicating and stuff, you choose your moment. You do not go to your boss when they're clearly having a bad time, or bring something up when it's 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Choose an appropriate moment to talk things out. And make it look good, right? Your ideas are important and they deserve a good looking vehicle to convey them to your audience. It doesn't matter, it does matter, right? If your content is really good, of course that matters. However, when you spend all the time making that content, but you couldn't spend a few more hours to make it look good, it feels like a waste of time, right? And it's not that hard of a task either. Modern software exists and they can help you produce stunning outputs regardless whether you're using Microsoft or a word processor. You need to learn just a few basic commands. Just use style sheets, right? It's not that waste of a time to put in some page headers, footers, margins, and just making it look good. Also, an important note, check your spellings. First automatically and also check by hand in case. Even though it passes by the autocorrect, some words might have mistakes, right? So check your spellings, it's really important. And then involve your audience, right? Again, get their feedback. When you produce a document, right? If possible, involve your readers with early drafts of the documents. Get their feedback and pick their brains. And involve what you got from their feedback in your document and produce a better one in the process. And another important one is getting back to people. Now, you get so many emails or memos asking for information or requesting some actions, right? Always respond to those emails, saying, even if the response is just, I'll get back to you later, or anything to keep people informed and make them know that you're on top of it, that you are taking care of it. I feel like that is a very important aspect of communication. If you ask someone a question and they don't respond, it feels like it's impolite, right? Even if they are working on it, you still need to acknowledge the email that they have sent. So make sure to always respond to your emails. And documentation. You can communicate even through documentation, because documentation is a really important part of coding. You need to comment what you're doing, what the code is doing itself, right? And by doing so, you're giving the other developers a leg up when they come to use it. So it's really important to comment your code. However, this doesn't mean that every single function, data structure, type declaration needs a comment, because all of us are in the IT industry, and we know, like, we can see the code and we can see how it is done. So commenting on that aspect is very redundant. So remember to restrict your non-API commenting to discussing why something is done, its purpose and its goal, not how it's done. Again, it's at that point it would become redundant, because again, we can see the code, we can see how it's done step by step. Provide what is being done though, what its purpose is. I think that is a very important aspect. So a summary of commenting, what we have talked about until now: know what you want to say, know your audience, choose a style, make it look good, involve your audience, and get back to people, and also document your code. And in addition to this as well, remember, because we're, especially in this environment of COVID and everything, online communication is also really important. So when you're dealing with emails, right, these tips are simple, but I think these are very effective and important to keep in mind. Proofread before you hit send. Check the spellings and grammar, and for any accidental autocorrect mishaps, right? Keep the format simple and clear, so it's not too much of a bother to read the email, right? Keep the coding to a minimum. No one likes to receive their own 100-line email with I agree tapped on it. And when you do quote other people's email, be sure to attribute it and quote it in line rather than just as an attachment. And check your list of recipients before sending. You do not want to send an email to someone that you do not want to send to, so make sure that you check your recipients list. Do not just CC. Yeah. And last but not least, just be decent and professional when you're sending emails. You do not want to be a troll. So yeah, just be decent when you're communicating with people in your career life. And that would be the end of it. That would be the end of a pragmatic philosophy. That is the first section of a pragmatic programmer. And yep, if you have any doubts, let me know. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.